What if leadership was not about charisma, genius strategies, or bold speeches, but about a handful of hard-earned truths, repeated under pressure, tested in failure, and proven in moments when everything is on the line? After nearly 4 decades as a Navy SEAL and the longest-serving frogman in U.S. history, Admiral William H. McRaven distilled the lessons of war, command, and life into 18 simple rules. Simple, but never easy. This is the wisdom of the Bullfrog. Admiral McRaven opens the book by explaining why leadership, while simple in concept, is extraordinarily difficult in practice. Drawing from decades of military service, he defines leadership as accomplishing a mission with the people and resources available, while preserving the integrity of the institution. Throughout history, militaries have relied on mottos and maxims to guide behavior under pressure. These sayings act as mental shortcuts, reminding leaders how to act when uncertainty is high and consequences are severe. The 18 principles in this book, some focused on character, others on action, are the collected wisdom that guided McRaven from young officer to 4-star admiral. Chapter 1. Death Before Dishonor. Honor is not an old-fashioned word reserved for history books or ceremonial speeches. In Admiral McRaven's view, honor is the bedrock on which all effective leadership stands. Without it, no achievement, no matter how impressive, has lasting value. Leaders may gain power, wealth, or recognition, but if they sacrifice integrity along the way, their legacy is ultimately hollow. McRaven draws from centuries of tradition, from ancient Stoics to modern military codes, to show that great leaders have always understood one truth: doing the right thing matters, even when it is costly. True honor is not about appearances or slogans. It is about consistently choosing what is right over what is convenient. Leaders are constantly tempted to cut corners, hide mistakes, or protect their own interests, especially when pressure mounts. But the moment a leader compromises their moral compass, trust begins to erode. Through his experiences with institutions like West Point and the Navy SEALs, McRaven emphasizes that honor is not perfection. Every leader will stumble. What defines great leaders is how they respond when they fall short. Owning mistakes, correcting course, and recommitting to ethical behavior strengthens both personal credibility and organizational culture. Leaders set the moral tone. If they lie, cheat, or tolerate dishonesty, that behavior spreads quickly. Honor, practiced daily, becomes the invisible force that holds teams together in the hardest moments. Chapter 2. You can't surge trust. Trust is one of the most powerful assets a leader can possess, and one of the most fragile. McRaven makes it clear that trust cannot be created overnight or summoned during a crisis. It is built slowly, through repeated actions that demonstrate character, competence, and consistency. Drawing from his work with intelligence agencies, military partners, and later civilian institutions, McRaven shows how trust grows when leaders show up early, work hard, keep their word, and admit mistakes. Employees and teams watch leaders closely, not for grand speeches, but for everyday behavior. Do you follow through? Do you listen? Do you take responsibility when things go wrong? A critical warning runs through this chapter. Overpromising is one of the fastest ways to destroy trust. Leaders who promise results they cannot deliver may win short-term approval, but they lose long-term credibility. Trust also requires patience. New leaders often want immediate loyalty, but seasoned leaders understand that trust is earned through time and shared hardship. When pressure hits, teams will only follow leaders they already believe in. Chapter 3. When in command. Leadership demands decisiveness. Once someone is placed in command, hesitation and visible doubt can be more damaging than making an imperfect decision. McRaven illustrates this principle through the story of Admiral Chester Nimitz and the Battle of Midway, one of the most consequential decisions in U.S. naval history. Nimitz faced enormous uncertainty. Intelligence was incomplete, resources were limited, and failure could have changed the course of the war. Yet leadership required action. McRaven emphasizes that leaders are chosen because they have demonstrated judgment and capability. Once given authority, they must accept the burden that comes with it. This chapter underscores that leaders cannot afford to appear defeated or paralyzed by fear. Confidence reassures teams, even when conditions are grim. Command presence. How a leader carries themselves, speaks, and acts directly affects morale. Leadership is not about having all the answers. It is about taking responsibility, making informed decisions, and standing by them. When in command, leaders must take the helm and lead. Chapter 4. We all have our frog floats. Not every leadership task is glamorous. Early in his career, McRaven was assigned to build a parade float instead of participating in high-profile operations. The task felt trivial and deeply frustrating, but that experience taught him a lesson that shaped his entire career. Every organization has frog floats, jobs that feel beneath one's status or aspirations. McRaven explains that how leaders handle these tasks reveals their character. Leaders who complain, cut corners, or dismiss small responsibilities signal entitlement and insecurity. In contrast, leaders who take pride in doing unimportant work will earn respect and trust. This chapter reinforces the idea that humility is not weakness. Excellence in small tasks prepares leaders for greater responsibility. Teams notice who can be trusted with the details. Leaders who treat every assignment as meaningful build a reputation for reliability and commitment, qualities that open doors to bigger opportunities. Chapter 5. The only easy day was yesterday. Past success is not a license to relax. McRaven draws from SEAL training and the life of Admiral Chuck Lemoyne to explain why leaders must bring energy and resilience every single day. The moment a leader believes the hardest work is behind them, decline begins. Leadership is physically, mentally, and emotionally demanding. Teams draw strength from their leaders' attitude. If leaders appear exhausted, entitled, or disengaged, that mindset spreads quickly. McRaven stresses that leaders are not owed comfort or ease because of rank or experience. Leadership is a continual obligation to perform. This does not mean leaders must be perfect or endlessly strong. Some days will be difficult, and setbacks are inevitable. What matters is consistency. Leaders must recommit daily, understanding that tomorrow will demand as much effort as today, if not more. The willingness to endure and persist is what separates effective leaders from complacent ones. Chapter 6. Run to the sound of the guns. When crises erupt, great leaders move toward the problem instead of avoiding it. McRaven illustrates this principle through personal experiences in combat and historical examples like Gettysburg. Leadership is most visible when things go wrong. Running to the sound of the guns means accepting responsibility, showing presence, and confronting issues directly. Leaders who hide, deflect blame, or delay action only worsen situations. Crisis moments demand clarity, courage, and decisive leadership. McRaven emphasizes that being the face of the solution often means accepting criticism and personal risk. But leadership is not about self-protection. It is about protecting the mission, the people, and the institution. Leaders who step forward in difficult moments earn lasting trust and respect. Chapter 7. SUA Sponte. Initiative is a defining trait of strong leaders. The Army Ranger motto, SUA Sponte, meaning of your own accord, captures the expectation that leaders act without waiting for instructions. McRaven argues that organizations stagnate when people wait passively to be told what to do. Leaders must think independently, anticipate problems, and take responsibility for action. Initiative requires confidence and a willingness to accept risk. While mistakes may occur, inaction is often more damaging than imperfect action. This chapter also highlights the importance of empowering others. Leaders who encourage initiative create adaptable, resilient teams capable of responding to changing conditions. Trusting subordinates to act builds confidence and strengthens the organization as a whole. Chapter 8. Who Dares Wins. Courage is essential to leadership. McRaven explores how meaningful progress often requires leaders to take calculated risks. Playing it safe may protect leaders in the short term, but it rarely produces exceptional outcomes. This chapter emphasizes the balance between boldness and judgment. Recklessness is dangerous, but excessive caution stifles innovation and momentum. Leaders must be willing to step forward, make difficult calls, and accept uncertainty. By daring to act when others hesitate, leaders set the tone for their teams. Courage inspires confidence and opens opportunities that would otherwise remain unreachable. Chapter 9. Hope is not a strategy. Hope can inspire, but it cannot replace planning. McRaven stresses that effective leadership requires discipline, preparation, and realism. Leaders who rely solely on optimism ignore the complexities and risks inherent in any mission. This chapter highlights the importance of clear goals, detailed planning, and accountability. Leaders must anticipate obstacles and prepare contingencies. When conditions change, plans must adapt. McRaven makes it clear that hope must be paired with action. Leaders who combine vision with execution create organizations capable of surviving uncertainty and achieving sustained success. Chapter 10. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. No matter how much time leaders spend preparing, reality has a way of disrupting even the most carefully crafted plans. Admiral McRaven emphasizes that planning is essential, but blind adherence to a plan is dangerous. The moment execution begins, new information appears, conditions shift, and assumptions collapse. Leaders who cling rigidly to their original plan risk failure. What matters most is not the perfection of the plan, but the clarity of intent behind it. When teams understand the commander's intent, they can adapt intelligently as circumstances change. McRaven draws from combat operations to show that flexibility, not rigidity, keeps missions alive. Leaders must remain calm, absorb new data quickly, and adjust without panic. Adaptability is not weakness. It is the mark of a leader who understands reality. Great leaders also avoid micromanagement during chaos. Instead of dictating every move, they empower their people to respond to unfolding events. A shared understanding of goals allows decentralized decision-making, which is often the difference between success and collapse when plans inevitably break down. Chapter 11. It pays to be a winner. Winning matters more than leaders often admit. Success builds confidence, reinforces belief, and creates momentum throughout an organization. McRaven explains that people want to be part of winning teams, and leaders are responsible for setting conditions where success is expected and achievable. Winning does not mean cutting corners or sacrificing values. Sustainable success is built on discipline, preparation, and high standards. Leaders must define what winning looks like, align the organization around those standards, and hold everyone, including themselves, accountable. Even small victories matter. Leaders who recognize progress and celebrate wins boost morale and motivation. Over time, a culture of winning takes root, making excellence the norm rather than the exception. Leaders who tolerate mediocrity, on the other hand, signal that losing is acceptable. Chapter 12. A shepherd should smell like a sheep. Leadership from a distance rarely works. McRaven argues that leaders must stay connected to the people they lead, understanding their challenges, frustrations, and daily realities. Leaders who isolate themselves in offices and boardrooms lose touch with the truth. Being present builds trust. When leaders share hardships, listen actively, and show genuine concern, they earn loyalty that cannot be demanded. McRaven draws on military examples where leaders who walked the ground with their troops made better decisions and inspired greater commitment. This chapter reinforces that authority alone does not create influence. Respect is earned through proximity, empathy, and understanding. Leaders who know their people can anticipate problems, address morale issues early, and create environments where individuals feel valued. Chapter 13. Troop the line. Standards do not maintain themselves. McRaven stresses the importance of visible leadership and routine inspection. When leaders consistently show up, observe performance, and engage with their teams, accountability becomes part of the culture. Trooping the line is about more than inspection, it is about presence. Leaders who walk through their organizations demonstrate commitment and reinforce expectations. Small lapses, if ignored, grow into systemic failures. By maintaining standards and correcting issues early, leaders prevent complacency. Consistency signals seriousness, and seriousness builds trust. Teams perform better when they know leadership is paying attention. Chapter 14. Expect what you inspect. What leaders choose to inspect sends a clear message about priorities. McRaven explains that people focus on what is measured and reviewed. If leaders fail to inspect critical areas, performance inevitably slips. Inspection is not about mistrust. It is about responsibility. Leaders are accountable for outcomes. An inspection ensures alignment between intent and execution. When leaders verify rather than assume, they uncover problems early and reinforce standards. This chapter highlights the connection between oversight and excellence. Leaders who inspect regularly create disciplined organizations where expectations are clear and performance is reliable. Chapter 15. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Communication is the lifeblood of leadership. McRaven emphasizes that most failures stem not from bad intentions, but from poor communication. Leaders must be relentless in explaining goals, expectations, and changes. Clear communication requires repetition. Leaders should never assume a message was understood the first time. Listening is just as important as speaking. Feedback reveals misunderstandings and allows correction before problems escalate. This chapter reinforces that transparency builds trust. When leaders communicate openly, even during uncertainty, they reduce confusion and anxiety. Silence, ambiguity, or inconsistency erodes confidence quickly. Chapter 16. When in doubt, overload. In critical moments, under-resourcing a mission is a costly mistake. McRaven argues that leaders should err on the side of providing more support rather than less. Failure due to insufficient resources is often preventable. Overloading does not mean waste. It means anticipating friction, fatigue, and unforeseen obstacles. Leaders who allocate extra resources give their teams margin for error and adaptability. This principle reflects a deeper leadership responsibility, setting teams up to succeed. Leaders who gamble with minimal support risk lives, morale, and credibility. Chapter 17. Can you stand before the long green table? Every major decision carries moral weight. McRaven introduces the idea of the long green table as a mental test of accountability. Leaders must ask themselves whether they can justify their actions honestly before peers, superiors, and their own conscience. This chapter emphasizes ethical clarity and self-reflection. Leaders should consider not only whether a decision is legal or efficient, but whether it is right. Transparency protects leaders from regret and institutions from scandal. By applying this test consistently, leaders build integrity into decision-making. Choices made in secrecy or self-interest rarely withstand scrutiny. Chapter 18. Always have a swim buddy. No leader succeeds alone. McRaven closes the core lessons by emphasizing teamwork, mutual responsibility, and shared accountability. In SEAL training, a swim buddy ensures survival. In leadership, trusted partners ensure resilience. Strong teams are built on trust, communication, and commitment to one another. Leaders must foster environments where people look out for each other and speak up when something is wrong. This chapter reinforces that leadership is a collective effort. By building strong relationships and support systems, leaders create organizations capable of enduring stress, adversity, and change. Leadership is not complicated, but it is hard. The principles in this book are straightforward, yet living them consistently requires courage, discipline, humility, and endurance. Admiral McRaven closes by reminding readers that leadership is a daily choice. When leaders commit to these simple truths, they earn trust, inspire action, and leave institutions stronger than they found them.